Cool, cool. Here we are. Here we go. So today is the first show. Mansa's Mic Drops, starring yours truly. And I got my guy Jay Nay from Last Second Sports, has an amazing channel, delivers a lot of 49ers content. Also someone I follow on Twitter. So basically to kind of give you a rundown of my 49ers fanhood, I was born in Iowa. So there's no team, of course. And when I was going to elementary school, I kept seeing the same hat, and like it was Cub hats, Chicago Bears hats, and Green Bay Packer hats. And me completely oblivious to sports. I'm thinking, why is everybody wearing the same hat? You know, like my father and my brother, my older brother, they would watch sports. I didn't. But I finally sat in front of the TV with them and I see the Chicago Bears helmet. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's what this is. I was like, oh, so everybody likes this team. It was a Monday night game. I think it was either 87 or 88. And the 49ers blasted them like 41-0. So I'm like, that's my team. So I go to school the next day, talking crap to everybody with a Bears hat, not knowing anything about sports whatsoever. I didn't even know. Like my dad was a Steelers fan, but he loved Joe Montana. So he was huge. He was a huge Joe Montana fan, but I really wasn't because like it was like 87. I think Joe played two or three more years. So I never was a really big Joe fan. I knew Joe was good though. But I'm more. I like Steve Young more than I like Joe. So when I rank quarterbacks, I actually rank Steve ahead of Joe because of his mobility. But so that gives you just like a basic rundown of where my 49ers fandom came from, which is also why my basketball team is on the East Coast, and it's the Miami Heat.
That makes sense. You guys are about to be in the finals now.
Right. So my parents were diehard Laker fans, right? And I watched more basketball than football. So I was just a Laker fan by association. And they drafted Kobe Bryant. And I said, man, look at this fake Michael Jordan. I'm like, there's no way I'm about to root for a fake Michael Jordan because I wasn't a Michael Jordan fan.
Yeah.
I was like, there's no way I'm going to root for a fake Michael Jordan. So I rooted for everybody that played the Lakers, and I rooted for everybody that played LA, and I rooted for everybody that played the Bulls. And I seen Dwayne Wade at Marquette. And I said, whoever drafts this kid, that's my team. And the Heat drafted him. So I've been a Heat fan since, the draft of Dwayne Wade. Just to give you like a little basic rundown.
I love it.
So I wanted to the last time I was on your show, we were actually talking about the 49ers schedule. And I said I think that the defensive line is I actually think it's going to be better than 2019. We really didn't have a lot of time, but I wanted to compound on that because I was looking at, I'm like, what was so special about that 2019 defensive line? Because when you look at it on paper, it doesn't even look that good. Even now, when you go back and look, does it really look good on paper?
I mean, I guess it depends. Bosa, Buckner, Armstead, Ford. I mean, Ford being the speed rusher off the edge, that's,
But like the depth behind it, and I know those guys were great. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, those guys are great. But we have Bosa, who's not a rookie anymore.
Yeah.
We have Hargrave, which he's just a tad bit behind Buckner, I would say.
Yeah.
We still have Armstead, and we have a collection of players, which I wanted to get into because the most intriguing is Drake Jackson. I was talking.
I think you muted yourself, Mansa. On StreamYard itself, I think the mute button at the bottom. I think you muted yourself there.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay, so Drake Jackson is extremely intriguing. I kind of think that they drafted Drake Jackson to be who they thought Armstead was, whereas I think Jackson can play on first down and second down on the edge, And in case they pass, he may still be able to get pressure or bother the quarterback back down some passes. But he needed to get more stout on the run. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I believe he needed to get more stout on the run. But on third down, he can rush from the interior when they bring in the speed rusher. And I think
You see, you got my wheels turning, so I had to go back and look at the roster to make sure I wasn't tripping about some of these players. And I think you're right. By the way, the depth wasn't crazy good.
they just stayed
You look
healthy.
at yeah, but there were some guys that played. I don't know. It's kind of like now, right, where you've got guys that need to prove themselves. You had Kevin Givens, who was a year two guy. Contavious Street had been in the league for a couple years,
Mm-hmm.
and then really the breakout. I think the guy that kind of made everything tick that year, or helped everything tick from a depth situation, would have been DJ Jones. I
Right,
think that's where it's at. Is DJ Jones
right. DJ
was
Jones, solid. He
he
came in
he was
solid,
the one guy that just came through as a force,
completely unexpected.
completely unexpected, and I
Right,
think
right, right.
that's the biggest thing. So,
Yeah. So I just anticipate Kalia Davis being that.
and he might be. He's got the same build. I mean, I don't want to go way overboard with Kalia Davis, but I do have to say he's got a little bit of Warren Sapp to him from the
Yeah.
standpoint that he's short, he's stout, he's got quick hands, he's got some good pass rush moves. I'm not going that far and saying he's going to be a Hall of Fame player in the
Well,
league, but
I
he
don't think
reminds me a little bit.
I don't think he has because Sap. One thing about Sap, his nastiness level was off the charts.
For sure. For
He
sure.
was just mean. He was mean every snap. He was mean. So, I mean, but even if you're even a mini Sap on this line with Hargrave and Bosa, and then you got your speed rusher off the edge, you got some depth pieces with Farrell. I think this D line is going to end up better.
Yeah, it could be. It's got
I
to be
just
healthy. That's the big thing. Because
definitely
2019, if you remember, when D Ford missed time, that defensive line, the dominance went out the window.
yeah,
He was like the guy that held it together because he was the speed rusher opposite of Bosa. And
right.
then once he left, they didn't have that. And I feel like they've been searching for that ever since D Ford left was, hey, let's try to find this speed rusher. They
Yep.
really haven't been able to solidify it. And so we'll see if anybody can step into that role this year, but it's going to be tough, man. That's really what they've been missing. And that's why you look at a guy like Yannick Ngakoue, and a lot of people are salivating over the possibility of him potentially coming because they have the money. He's perfect. He could fit that role really, really good. But I think the 49ers have to kind of see what else they've got. They
Yeah,
might not need to spend the money. Drake
I think
Jackson or somebody else can turn into a guy for him.
I mean, their D line coach and their offensive line coach are the ones that they trust with
Yep.
scraps.
Yep.
It's like, hey, I'm not going to give you the best clay, but I'll give you some clay and I'll give you a couple of years to mold it.
Yeah.
I'll give you 2 years to mold it, but I'm not going to give you great clay. So
Yeah.
they're not using a lot of draft capital on those for them, but they churn out because I think Bill was more of I think Bill's issue has kind of been more of his technique, even with his first step being inward instead of outward, or things that you're gonna fix that culture. I trust him to fix. So
Yeah.
I expect that element of the pass rush to be back, and that was another reason I was like, yeah, I like what it looks like on paper, and I'm really just going out on a limb thinking it's gonna be better than 2019 because I think Farrell will allow Bosa to rest.
Yeah. I mean, but also I think another thing that we need to take into account is, I mean, I would say the linebackers and secondary are better than 2019.
Definitely, because
And
our
if that's the case, that's going to help the D line get home, right? Because the coverage
right.
is better. So they can work hand in hand maybe a little bit better because some of the players are the same, but Fred Warner was an all pro Fred really until that
No,
year.
he
You know what I
wasn't. Not
mean?
yet.
So
Yeah, he came out that year. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So I kind of I don't know. I think I what the hell happened?
you're good. You're good.
Why
I
did it
can hear
cut
you.
off? Like my screen went black.
Oh, I don't know. I can
I
hear you
don't
and
know.
see you. So you're good.
Yeah, but so yeah, again, I was gonna get to the secondary, but yeah, the secondary is definitely better. I actually think Moody is better than that version of Sherman that we got.
Oh yeah, not even
So
close.
I think that our defense is going to have to be better than that 2019 defense to accomplish what we need to accomplish on the schedule. Because
Yeah.
once we went over the schedule, and then when I seen we got 4 teams coming off their bye week, we have Jacksonville after our bye week, but they're also on bye, which
Mm.
kind of never doesn't happen that often. But we have the Browns after their bye week. We have the Cardinals in week 14 after their bye week, Jacksonville in week 9, and then we also have the Bengals after a bye week. So that actually kind of makes me want to change because I had the Bengals. I put the Bengals down as a win and gonna kind of look at that differently. But one question I wanted to ask: when you were going through your schedule, did you have a quarterback in mind, or what were you just going through the schedule, not thinking that it mattered who the quarterback was?
No, I didn't have a quarterback in mind at all. In fact, that's kind of been my stance lately is I don't know that it matters this year. I mean, I think they need to figure out who their quarterback is long term
Right.
throughout the process of this year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And maybe that guy's not even on the roster. I don't know, but they've got to figure that out. However, for this year, just this year, if I told you the destination, but I didn't tell you who the quarterback is, I bet you'd be like, yeah, I could see that. Like if I just insert Sam Darnold or Trey Lance or Brock Purdy and said, hey, this is how far they're going to make it, you'd be like, yeah, okay, I can see it. I
And
don't
isn't
think
it,
it
isn't it
matters.
isn't it weird? I mean, like, how many teams in the league can say like it doesn't really matter who we play at quarterback? I see us
Yeah.
getting to the conference championship.
But I don't know if that's a good thing.
I don't think it is.
I don't know
It's
if
like
that's a good thing or not.
no, I don't either. Because like, yeah, I love the consistency, but man, I want to win one. I'm getting tired of people talking about our 30-year drought because I've been here for the entire drought. So
Right.
I'm real sick of it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So yeah, I don't. It's hard to say whether it's a good or bad, and I looked at the schedule again, but it's like, hey, I'm still 12 wins, so we're still in the playoffs. And once you're in the playoffs, I mean, you got a shot. So how that plays
Yeah, I
out,
think I think I initially had us at 13-4. I'm gonna stick with that. It's kind of like last year. Last year I had us at 12-5, but I said I'm gonna give us a loss that I'm not predicting and we'll finish 11-6. This year I've got us 13-4, and then realistically I'm like, 12-5 is probably the record. Like there's a loss somewhere that I'm not seeing
yeah, that
that
definitely
will come
we
up, you know?
our defense will tend to play down to the competition,
Mhm,
and I'm hoping they're not like that with Wilkes. I don't. I mean, you can never know until you're actually in it, but
for
they
sure.
kind of played down into the Bears in the second half, and then that Raiders game, they completely underestimated that quarterback, and you could see it before Bosa even said anything. Um, so that I guess you can factor that in, and I still don't see us winning less than 10 games. I just don't. And even though
No,
I
not
know
less
that,
than 10.
I know injuries are possible, but I still don't see us winning less than. I still got us in double digit wins. You know,
Yeah, I don't see really any scenario that they lose that they don't win at least 10 and aren't
right?
a playoff team. I mean, the NFC, there's some good teams at the top, but really, I mean, 9 wins probably gets you into the playoffs in the NFC. And so when I look at it that way, I'm like, okay. And like you said, once you're in, it doesn't really matter. Everything's even again. So
Right, right. So are they doing 7 teams again this year in the playoffs?
yeah, that's it. That's the
That's
format.
become norm. Oh,
Hmm.
okay. Okay. Well, yeah, 9 wins you can get in.
Yeah.
Definitely. All right. So I wanted to ask about Shanahan's creativity.
Hmm. Okay.
And for me, it seems to me in Shanahan's office is extremely creative, but it doesn't seem to be evolving much. And I'm wondering, is a scheme or how often he's actually looking at the personnel? Because I'm wondering, like, okay, why haven't we seen a heavy package? You can come out with a heavy package with use check, Mason, CMC, Ayuk, and Kittle. Now you can come out with that heavy formation. You can run whatever you want to run on first down, but you can run a hurry up on second down and put CMC in the slot, and then line use check out wide, and you still got Mason behind you. You're still a threat to run, but you're also a threat to pass, to beat their linebacker. You got CMC matched up with a linebacker and safety. It's just I'm wondering what it is about Shanahan that you don't like. Have you ever wondered why we don't do any hurry up, just like out of the blue, just to like get the points up quick? Because with our defense, we typically, hey, if we score this many points, our defense can typically hold a team below X amount of points, and it's been that way for a couple years. And I'm just thinking that what is his evolution? Is it just more routes out of different formations, or is that evolution actually going to be the zone read?
I don't look at Kyle as a creative coach personally.
Really.
I don't, and that's not. I don't want to me. I'm going to explain myself because I don't want it to come off as a bad thing. I don't think you have to be creative to necessarily be effective. But when you look at his personnel groupings, I don't see a lot of creativity. And I feel like there's a lot of mixing and matching you can do.
Yeah.
I don't see any like crazy, not that you have to go out there and do ring around the rosy like the Chiefs do to be creative, but you're never going to see that kind of stuff from Shanahan. You know what I mean?
Right. I don't want to either.
You're not going to see a lot of hurry up. You're not going to see them deviate from a game plan as far as, I'll give you a really good example. Remember when we lost to the Dolphins in, I think it was 2020, and Brian Allen was on the field, and Fitzpatrick and the Dolphins just kept attacking Brian Allen over.
Yeah.
You'll never see that from Shanahan. You could have a weak link on the defense. In fact, I think arguably there was one when they played the Rams in the NFC Championship. You go watch Ayuk. He was cooking that man repeatedly. And they didn't take advantage of it. It's like he had a game plan and he's not going to deviate. So I don't look at Shanahan as the creative type. I look at Shanahan as somebody who's going to exploit the rules of defenders, and that's how he puts things into place. And so we have to remember that Shanahan came from the defensive side of the ball. He originally coached defense. And so because of that, he knows the rules and responsibilities of every player in a defense, and he can attack that. He knows if he does a 2x2 over here against a cover 2, and he runs this route, that the rule of that DB is to do X, and so he can put them in conflict. So I think that's what he does more often than not, is he exploits players and he exploits the rules and responsibilities of a defense. But I don't think he's creative. That's not how I would describe Shanahan.
Yeah, he's not going after matchups.
Right.
Yeah, I kind of get that from him too. Because of use check versatility, the amount of usage that you get out of use check really shows that you lack in the creative area, because look at what you pay him and look at how many touches he actually gets.
Yeah. And Shanahan's very smart, right? Like he's obviously very, very smart. And he's does a great job. And this is what happens early in the season. His team will struggle a little bit offensively. But a lot of that, it's almost by design. I mean, he would rather that they win the games, don't get me wrong. But what he's doing early on in seasons, if you're paying attention, is he's setting up people for later in the season. He's putting certain film out there so that he can exploit you later. Which is genius. But it's not creative.
No, it is definitely genius. And I thought, because that's what I thought he was doing with Trey. It's like, okay, he ran that power 3 times in that Seattle game, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It was either 2 or 3 times that he ran that, and he ran that early. And I'm like, he just wants to set up his playbook. And I think that had a lot to do with him bringing in Sam Darnold. Like, just in case Trey gets hurt, I can still run the zone read stuff with Sam.
Mm-hmm.
I might not be able to run it. I might not be able to run it with Brock, but I can at least, the threat of him running is at least there to make one person hesitate.
Yeah.
And I think he really wants to put the zone read into his game. I actually kind of thought that they were going to draft that quarterback. Was DTR? I thought they were going to take DTR. Yeah, I thought they were going to take him. But I guess, they needed a kicker, so.
That they did.
Yeah. So I really, and it's kind of hard getting, discussing 49ers content and avoiding talking quarterbacks.
It's impossible.
It's next to impossible. I really don't want to get into the dink and dunk conversation because from my definition of dink and dunk, it's not a bad thing to be a dink and dunk quarterback. It's not terrible. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but
I think that's where you hit the nail on the head, Mansa, because everybody looks at for some reason has taken this term or this thought by Ryan and anybody that believes it and has turned it into an automatic negative.
right.
And the point is that it doesn't have to be a negative. Now, it's not his strength or Brock Purdy's strength is not throwing downfield. Like I think anybody with eyes will tell you that. It doesn't have to be a horrible thing though. It doesn't mean that he can't be effective. I mean, we saw him be effective. It just means that's his limitation. Just like Trey Lance has limitations as well, and people will point those out. So it's just being honest about what you're seeing. It's okay.
Yeah. So what do you think of NFL comparison for Brock Purdy, Chad Pennington?
Ooh. I mean, Brock Purdy's tough to compare because he does have that elusiveness about him. He has that pocket elusiveness, and that's something that Pennington didn't have. Now, Pennington pre-injury had a stronger arm than what he had towards the tail end. I mean, his arm really got bad towards the end there.
Bad. Yeah. What injury did he have?
It was something. If I remember correctly, it was something to do with his shoulder. His labrum.
I thought it was a labrum. Yeah, I thought it was a labrum.
I don't. It's hard. I don't know if there's a perfect comp for the people that I've compared Purdy to. I don't know. I thought
he kind of reminds me of Doug Flutie. He just doesn't have Doug, but Doug Flutie had a cannon.
He did.
So he just didn't. He just doesn't have the arm. But as far as the moxie and the escapability, he really reminds me a lot of him.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And people will look at the result of the player and be like, oh, well, you can't make that comparison. But I'm just saying, as far as what he brings to the table physically, a player that I compared him to, if you go look at their velocity, it was the exact same in the pre-draft combine. You go look at their 40 times. You go look at how elusive they were in the pocket and kind of some of their mobility.
Mm-hmm.
The guy that I compared him to is Christian Ponder, and Christian Ponder wasn't in a great situation. And I'm not saying that Christian Ponder had the moxie, but as far as physical skill sets go, I think it's a pretty accurate comparison. Now there are other things that separate them, obviously, but just skill for skill, I still think Christian Ponder is a really good comparison.
But I mean, so what would Brock have done in his first year if he was the Texans quarterback? If he started 10, he wasn't in that situation like Ponder was in. Ponder wasn't in that situation. That's actually a good comparison because Ponder went to Florida State, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Christian Ponder. Yeah, he went to Florida State. So the late news that what we've been hearing about Trey Lance and what you take from what you're hearing from Christensen as well as Shanahan. Not really thinking like, hey, can you make a prediction? But like, how do you feel about what you've been hearing?
I mean, I feel good. I think it was needed because Trey, regardless of what you think of Trey, I think that you can really look at the situation from afar and be like, okay, at some point, the hate has gone too far. It just has. It's one thing, everybody's, well, Jimmy's a veteran. He's better. He's proven he's got to start. Well, Brock Purdy came in and he played really good. He proved it. He's got to be the guy. But at some point, you got to draw the line. And for me, that line was Sam Darnold. When they brought in Sam Darnold, and everybody's like, well, I mean, he could be the best he's ever been here. And we should really start thinking about giving him a shot. I'm like, oh, well, ease up. All right, come on. Like, at some point, the hate's gone too far. That's where I draw the line. And so to hear Shanahan come out, Christensen come out, talked for Mahomes as well, and just some of the other little things that were starting to come out. John Lynch even said some positive things. It's like, okay, finally something good is said about Trey Lance. I think those things needed to be said because you can't sell me that a kid with his physical skill sets, his hard work ethic, and his mental abilities doesn't have anything good that you can say about him. You
Exactly.
just can't convince me of that. So
Right. Me
at some
neither.
point, somebody's got to say something positive about him. And I'm glad
Exactly.
they're finally doing it.
Yeah. So I was kind of looking at the Christensen quote. I don't have it in front of me, but I know he referenced. He's like, "Oh, it took me 4 days to get him where I needed him. I had to have him watch Patrick." And I didn't take that as he didn't know um, what Trey's issue was. It was just he was having a hard time coaching him on getting it corrected. And from Trey watching Patrick Mahomes and then getting it, I'm thinking, okay, so what do you think there's a I'm actually encouraged by what he like him sitting there and watching Brock and him sitting there and watching Jimmy, because that version of Jimmy that he's seen last year was nothing like he had seen before. And then sitting back and watching Brock and thinking, I mean, hey, or are we really just kind of assuming things about Trey because we haven't seen Trey? Because in that rain game against Chicago, Kyle's not going to pass the ball a lot in a rain game. He's just not going to. And then he comes out, and it's the second week, and he's really setting up his scheme. I truly believe he sets his scheme up until he hits the bye week, and then he comes out and he takes advantage of everyone. So maybe, so I'm thinking that people just didn't get to see it, but there may have been some things that Trey would have done that would have probably surprised some people last year. And I think Kyle is really the only one in this. I think Kyle is the one that matters most. Maybe not the only one in this corner, but how strong he is in his corner is the reason why he wasn't traded for Penny. I'm sure somebody offered him, but I'm sure they didn't offer much.
Yeah. I mean, I think Kyle believes in him. And I think Kyle said as much. I mean, Kyle really laid it out perfect. It's like, hey, I believe or we believe in Trey Lance. But that's all we have right now is belief. We know what Brock Purdy can do, and we know that Brock Purdy can win games with this team. So it's really hard to replace a guy that we know versus something we believe in.
Right.
And I understand that because you're in the business of winning games. And I've talked about this on my show, but I equate it to faith. You know, some people believe in a God, some people don't. But if you believe in a God, you're walking completely by faith.
Right.
You don't visually get to see God,
Right.
right? Unless you're lucky or you've died
Right.
or something,
Are
right?
you dead or something?
So
Right.
yeah. So you don't visually see it. You're walking by faith, not by sight. That's the way it is with Brock Purdy. If I can put it in a football sense and say, I understand why people would see something in Brock Purdy and be like, well, I've seen it. It's hard to put your faith that maybe there's something better out there because you've seen it with Brock Purdy. I totally understand that. But that's, again, where I draw the line and say, okay, well, let's assume Brock Purdy's not here. Why would we walk by faith in Sam Darnold when our eyes tell us he's not very good?
Right.
So that doesn't make any sense. Or you could walk by faith in a guy that we just don't know, but
Right.
has all the physical, mental, and want to. Why wouldn't you put your faith in that? Why would you put your faith in this guy that you've seen, but it hasn't looked very good? That's where
It makes no sense. And
it doesn't
I
make any
truly
sense.
believe the whole Sam Darnold thing was let me get these 49ers fans to click on my material, because Sam Darnold being successful in this offense is bad for 49ers fans and it's bad for the organization unless he
Yeah.
wins a Super Bowl, because
Correct.
he's on a 1-year deal. And hey, so what if he's averaging 40 points a game? What if he goes on a tear and he's averaging 45 points a game for 7 weeks? So now you have a conundrum. Okay, so are we going to sign this guy to a long-term deal, to a short-term deal? But either way, if we sign to keep him, we're going to have to gut our team to do it.
Yep.
So I think from that perspective, and they're kind of like bean counters. They're always watching the money. And I just I don't see Sam Darnold getting out there unless Trey gives them a reason to, in like the OTAs and training camp. I think Trey would have to like play terrible in order for that to happen. So they're not seeing any erratic passes anymore. And I mean, if they're not seeing any erratic passes, I think that's good. But that whole Sam Darnold thing, I really think is just huffing and puffing. I mean, he's not going to get up there and say that Sam Darnold. Well, if you watch the tape, Sam sucks, but we want him here. He's not going to say that. Everybody knows that. So
No.
I don't know. I guess if you want to pick that up and run with it, go crazy. But I don't see Sam going in there unless Trey gets hurt or Brock comes back and he's hurt. I just don't see them going to. I don't see them going to Darnold, and especially week one, it just doesn't make sense to go. He has limited time in your playbook. You're going to Three Rivers. You're not going to put him out there because you're going to get 4 or 5 interceptions. I think he'll play that poorly against that defense. I think Joe Burrow threw 4 picks in that home opener against Pittsburgh. Yeah. Yep. So you mean to tell? I don't think that would be very smart to put Sam out there. I just don't. I really don't.
Yeah. I mean, if I was in a handicapped situation, I would say probably 60% Trey starts week 1, just Purdy's injury. I would put it at 30%, 35% Purdy probably, and then 5% on Sam Darnold. I think that's fair handicapping. I don't know. How would you break it down?
I'm actually gonna change. I was looking at 20 weeks from Brock's surgery is July 28th.
Mm-hmm.
The first week of the season is September 10th.
Mm-hmm.
If he's cleared on July 28th and he gets 5 weeks to get ready, so I'm actually about 50% on Trey, but I'm 40% on Brock and 10% on Sam. I don't think there's any reason.
You need 24 weeks of rehab. It's a 6 month.
It is 24?
Everything. It's 24, yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought it was
months,
20.
5.
Okay, I thought it was 20. Okay, well then I would increase it up to 75. I really like Trey would have to wet the bed for Darnold to start week 1. I might even want to call it 90. I'm serious, man. It's like the guy fumbles a lot, and one way to get into Kyle's doghouse. And what is Kyle going to do? I'm going to go out here and put this turnover machine out here and go against the Blitzkrieg. He's going to turn the ball over. And Kyle's going to he gets out there, he turns it over, and then what? You're going to bench him and say, "Hey Trey, we need you." It's right. it's like you. There's only so much whatever Trey is going to be able to swallow.
For sure, I get.
There's only so much of it.
I get it. Yeah.
So
I mean, this is where you've got to put trust in Kyle Shanahan. That regardless of what you're hearing, he's watching the film, and you've got to think that he's smart enough to realize, like, okay, it is possible that Darnold is a good practice player. I've never really seen him practice. Maybe he's really good in practice, but we know what he is in the game, and we've seen that repeatedly. So don't be fooled by some good practices if that's really what you're going off of. I hope that's not the case.
I hope not, especially from. I've seen the guy play terrible from clean pockets. And I mean, absolutely terrible from really clean pockets. Yep. You're not going to get those clean pockets here.
No.
So the offensive line, do you think they're going heavy on offensive line because he wants to run more zone read? Because I was watching the replay of Trey's injury, and on that play, Burford got destroyed on that play. And it's really he just wasn't strong enough. The guy just made waste of him. So I'm thinking that the heavier offensive line? I just really think that Kyle fell in love with the idea of his offense, his routes, what he knows. I think he's fallen in love with having a zone read quarterback. And I think he's going to roll it out. It's going to be there. And I think he wants to do it a lot more than what he did.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to shy away from it necessarily.
But I mean, do you think that's
a dual threat quarterback? So
yeah, but do you think that has anything to do with him getting linemen that aren't typical? Because that's not typical for.
If you look at their draft for the last 3 years, I feel like we've been using the bully ball thing for going into the 2021 season. We thought we're like, okay, yeah. I mean, you got bigger running backs. You went and got some big offensive linemen. It's going to be bully ball. we're getting away from some of the other stuff and we're going to go power. It's like, we didn't really see that.
No,
And
we
then
didn't.
last year they kind of restocked up on the offensive line and got a little thicker, and you still didn't see it. And so this year again, here we go. We've stocked up
Right.
again. It's like, I don't know. I really don't know, what the thought process is there. I mean, I think Coach Turner could really teach anything to these running backs.
Yeah.
And the offensive linemen are getting bigger, but
It's got to be the
I don't know.
most confusing part about Kyle's existence with the 49ers. Like, what
Mm,
in the world are you doing with the offensive line? It doesn't make sense. It's like you okay, we're gonna roll out with Trey. Everybody with the limited amount of practices that you have in the offseason, the entire offense, the tight ends, the running backs, everybody's learning a completely new blocking scheme.
yep.
It's almost like making them a rookie, and in that sense, when anytime you run that zone read, because they don't run it. I don't
Yep.
know. It just I don't know. I don't know. It's like I really don't understand that guy when it comes to his offensive line. Nothing that he does makes sense, but he gets results. So
Oh, he does.
and it's kind of
But
like the defensive line and offensive line. It's like you got to trust him.
it is a little strange though, because you remember his first year there, they traded, well, it was Trent Brown, right? What was his name?
Yep.
No.
Yep.
Yeah. Whatever his
Yeah.
name
With
was.
Tim
Trent,
Brown.
I think it was Trent Brown.
Yep.
He was the right tackle, a good one, by the
Good
way,
one.
and went on to
Solid.
go do some really good things. But he wasn't his style. He was too big, kind of out of shape, maybe a little bit. And so we got rid of him. But now he's started to slowly move back towards that. So it's like, okay, are you or are you not? I'm not really
I
sure.
didn't think Brown was a bad athlete. It was
I
just
don't think so either.
I think with Brown it was just time to pay him because he was on his last year. I think he was going
It
into the last
was,
year of his deal, his
but
rookie deal, and they would have had to pay him. But it made absolutely no sense to me. I was like, dude, that's like the best offensive lineman you got. You
yeah,
probably should have kept him. But they good at that
yep.
roster. I mean, you gotta I gotta take my hat off to him and John and the entire staff because what they moved 40 players that year
Oh,
when
they
they took
did a
over.
ton.
Oh
Yes.
my god, they took so the losses I mean the losses early on in his career aren't necessarily a reflection of him as a coach.
No,
I
they
kind
were
of give
competitive.
I kind of give Kyle a lot. I give Kyle a lot of crap, but I say that he's an A+ coordinator and a C- coach. I think he's a great GM. I mean, I think he himself makes bad picks, but when he allows his staff to make the picks, I think they do really well. His picks are, jeez, it seems like the ones that are for him are
He's
kind of
done a
god awful.
really they've done a really good job with the roster. I mean, there's Kyle Shanahan has strengths and he has weaknesses. I would say the biggest strength that they have is roster construction for the most part, and development of not only players but development of coaches on the coaching staff. I mean, how many
Yeah,
guys every year are getting promotions? Whether it doesn't even have to be the head coaches, but guys
he
going to
can't keep he
coordinators
can't
that
keep
weren't.
anyone. It seems like the only people he can keep is the D line coach and offensive line coach.
Yeah, and that's because that's what they want to do. It's not
Right.
because you know what I mean.
Yeah, it has
Like
nothing to do with
if
him.
Kosurik wanted to go 2 off seasons ago or last off season and be a defensive coordinator, he could have
Yeah, he could
easily
have
done that.
done. Yeah,
Easily.
because the Houston wanted him, didn't they?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yep.
D'Amico. So I was kind of thinking that as far as Tennessee and Houston, I think they didn't mind getting some of the players from 49ers, but I think they really don't want to be that attached to San Francisco. And I think that had a lot to do with Trey not being moved over there. It could have been their asking price, but I don't think they want to be considered 49ers South or 49ers East. I don't think they want that name attached to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just all comes down to what's available. And that's the other thing too, is there's a big assumption that was made that Trey Lance didn't get moved because nobody wanted him. It's like, well, I
Yeah,
guarantee they got offers. It's just not what they were asking. And that's the other thing. We have no idea what they were asking because there were rumors that came out last year that they were offered a second rounder for Jimmy and they said no. They wanted
right,
multiple second rounders. And
right.
so what was the asking price for Trey Lance? We really have no clue.
No clue. I
It,
think the
people
asking price
assume
was astronomical. I I think it would have been astronomical. You would have had to blow Kyle away to get him from him. I really think so.
Well, I think people assume that, oh, if somebody had offered a late second, he would have said yes to that because that's what
I don't.
we think the value is of him. But that doesn't mean the 49ers think that's the value. Maybe somebody did offer a second and they're like, nah. Or somebody
I, don't-
offered a third and they're like, nah. Like
I think
we don't know.
I honestly believe that you would have had to give them a first to get Trey.
Yeah, maybe.
But hey, I'm guessing. But I just think from Kyle's perspective, it's I got something to work with here. And I know I have something to work with here. Is he perfect? No. But I know what I got. So he knows my offense. He's been in it for 2 years. The kid works his ass off. I don't think it would have been that easy. I don't think a late round second would have done it. I honestly don't. I mean, but you never know when you're going to hear about this. Probably in 2025, you're going to hear, oh, well, these people offered 2/3 and they were turned down, or you know how that goes. We'll hear about this in a couple of years.
If he starts to play good, that's when you'll hear it because then other GMs want to sound smart. That's when the leaks will come out. Well, Washington offered X, Y, and Z, and we just couldn't get him. San Francisco loved him, but we wanted him too. Like that's when you'll start to hear it. So if he plays good, you'll hear it quick.
Okay. All right. So I got a question for you. Nothing that I don't think anyone has discussed this. If you moved on from Kyle, not saying you want to move on from Kyle, but if you moved on from Kyle, what coordinator or QB coach, it could be whoever, but from anywhere, who would you want to replace? Who would you take as this is the first guy I would replace Kyle with? Of course, no head coaches that are in positions that they're probably not going to lose, but coordinators out there that are up and coming that like, if I'm going to replace Kyle, I want that guy.
Oh, yeah. In a heartbeat, it'd be Ben Johnson, Detroit's offensive coordinator. No questions asked.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't expect that one.
Yeah.
At all.
That'd be my guy. Yeah.
What do you think of what's the guy's name? And he's in Washington now.
Oh, Bieniemy?
Bieniemy.
I like Bieniemy. Like Bieniemy. But the problem with Bieniemy is, and it's not his fault. I mean, he would probably do a fine. First of all, he should have been hired already. Like, let's be clear about that. He should have had his opportunity already. But my hesitancy with him would be, I don't know what you're responsible for when you are working with Andy Reid. I have zero clue. You can tell me, and Andy Reid can tell me, like, you did this and this. I imagine it's a lot like McDaniel was with Kyle Shanahan, where Kyle Shanahan calls the plays, but McDaniel had a big part in the game plan and leading up to it. Okay. Yeah. So I imagine Bieniemy was very similar, and McDaniel did really well his first year. So Bieniemy definitely can do a good job, but I know the fingerprint that Ben Johnson's putting on Detroit.
Right.
I mean, that team had no business being rated as high as they were offensively.
No.
And
he's doing a phenomenal job.
Dan Campbell is not calling the plays there. It's 100% Ben Johnson. That's why I say Ben Johnson, and that would be an easy one for me.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the hottest coaching candidate if they, because he's got some weapons now too. So
if they're a top 5 offense again, yeah, he's going to get paid.
Right. Okay. So, is there anything that this team can do that would get Kyle fired this year?
Oh, they would have to be horrible, and the locker room would have to turn completely against him. And I don't see either of those happening.
Yeah, I don't see
that would be the only way.
Not in 1 year. Nah, it will take more than
quick.
1.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is too quick.
This is how you're going to know Kyle Shanahan's on the hot seat when John Lynch gets fired.
I think John Lynch is done. I think John Lynch is done this year.
Well, he may decide to go back to TV, but if he doesn't decide on his own and they fire him, that's when you know that Kyle Shanahan's on the hot seat.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he's just going to step down because I don't know, I almost kind of get this feeling that he wants to talk like a GM, but he's not really a GM.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I have the tag. Yeah, it's on me, but it's Kyle. And Kyle does it. So even when he's sitting out there and he's talking and he, hey, Brock's our guy. He's our lead. He's a leader in the clubhouse. And then Shanahan comes on right after that. And Kyle goes, well, he would be the leader, but he's hurt.
Right.
You know what I mean? So he's hurt. He's, so basically Trey's got the opportunity to take that from him. and it makes John Lynch look stupid. Not
Yeah,
necessarily. I mean, it just looks like, well, John Lynch doesn't know what he's talking about. Not say stupid. I don't mean that. He's a Stanford guy. Him saying convicted probably makes him look sillier than him and Kyle not going, agreeing with each other. But you could just kind of sense that it's not really my job to do that. I really can't say, and I don't think he likes that. I think he'll step down after this year.
yeah, I do think he's competitive, and I think he wants that ring, and he knows that they're close, and so he continues to stick around a little bit. But I do agree that I think ultimately the TV money will be too much, and if they don't win, I I think Kyle Shanahan would probably prefer Adam Peters, and I think Adam Peters would do a fantastic job,
Right.
and so I think that he kind of knows like, my time's running out anyways. Let me go make money and do it on my terms and just kind of bow out. But he is trying to get that ring and say, because I mean, listen, if you're a Hall of Fame player with Super Bowl ring or rings and you can win one as a GM, I mean, you're a made man. You know what I mean?
Right. True. True. Okay. So one last question. Um, how where do you have us ending up this year? You got us in the Super Bowl. You got us winning it, or what do you got this year as far as how far we go?
Yeah, I
Or
have
do you need to see the playoff tree?
no. I'll give an early prediction. I have a Bengals 49ers Super Bowl with the Bengals winning.
I think of all the AFC teams, of all the AFC teams, I of the elites, and I'm talking Buffalo, Kansas City, Bengals, Ravens. The Ravens, the Bills, and the Chiefs would beat us. The only team that I feel extremely confident about beating is the Bengals, and it's just something about their defense. It, I think Jimmy left a lot on the field, and we should have slaughtered them that game. We went into overtime. I think we should have beat them by a couple of scores. I just for some reason it's the Bengals. I think that's the team we can beat. I think if it's a 49ers versus Bengals Super Bowl and Brock starting, Lance is starting, either one of those two, that's a 49er win. If it's the Bengals on the other side. So
I think the Bengals are a complete team. They added to their offensive line for the second
true,
offseason in a row.
true.
And they've got weapons everywhere. I mean, they're the most complete offense in the
True.
AFC, in my opinion. You've got two elite receivers, three good ones, two elite ones. You've got a very good running back in Mixon. The offensive line's gotten better. You've got a top five, arguable, some people will say second best or third best quarterback. You got a top five quarterback. And then the defense isn't great by any means, but it seems to get the job done. I mean, they've got a good pass rush, athletic secondary. They seem to get the job done when they
They
need
seem to
to.
have a good defensive scheme. It seems like
Yeah.
they
I
got a
mean,
good
they hold
scheme.
Kansas City when they need to.
Yeah, they do. And I was kind of shocked. I honestly just don't think that they're a good matchup for the 49ers. And when I thought the 49ers, could have laid waste to them. I don't know what it is about the Bengals, but when I look at that matchup, that's a 49er win.
I think Joe Burrow. It's funny because if you ask people, if you poll people and say, "Hey, who are your top five quarterbacks?" I bet you right now, Joe Burrow gets more votes for number two than any quarterback in the league. I don't agree with that, but that would be my guess. However, if you say, "Who are you more afraid of?" and you pose it that way, Joe Burrow moves pretty far down the
Down to
list all of a
4.
sudden.
Moves down to 4 at least. You're gonna be
Probably
more afraid
five,
of. You're probably gonna be more afraid of Lamar,
100%.
Mahomes,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Josh Allen,
Josh
Herbert.
Allen. I
I'm
don't
more
know.
afraid of Herbert. That guy's got a cannon. He can throw from every
Yeah, he
platform.
does have a cannon. Yeah, he does. It's I don't know. I guess I shouldn't put too much stock in his team not actually winning in the playoffs. Um, but his team was hurt like badly last year.
Hmm.
They were hurt bad last year.
Well, and
But
that coaching staff is
they're not.
awful.
Yeah, they should have never got rid of Anthony Lynn.
No.
They should have let Anthony Lynn go on with that. But
Yeah.
hey, it is what it is. Not my team. Don't really care.
So I
So
think that's what makes it interesting is people don't fear Joe Burrow maybe as much as those other guys, but uh, ultimately with the team around him, I mean that's they can score with anyone. That's for
okay.
sure.
So would you, if you had to pick and you facing that team, would you like Joe Burrow as a quarterback over if would you rather face that offense with Lamar or Burrow?
Oh, Burrow for sure.
Yeah, because like when I rank my top 5 quarterbacks, I actually rank Lamar 2 because he's accomplished so much with nothing. And he probably had the worst offensive coordinator. Hey, in my opinion, I'd say the worst offensive coordinator in the NFL. I really think that little of him as an OC. I don't even like to speak his name because of what he was doing in San Francisco, but um, I don't know. I put him. That's why I put him at 2. I know he's been hurt, but I put him at 2, and then I put I always forget his name. The Bills quarterback. I forget his Allen.
Josh Allen.
I put Allen 3, and it's almost like a 2A 2B because Allen is dangerous. And then Burrow.
Bro, if you gave Allen the weapons that they have in
That Burrow
Cincinnati,
has. Oh my.
oh, stop it.
Oh my
Stop it. It would
God.
be that guy would throw for 6,000 yards, and I'm not even joking. It's
Yeah.
insane what he would do with those weapons. I
Burrow.
think Josh Allen is the only quarterback in the league that you can say is a top 3 passer and a top 3 runner. He to me is he and Mahomes are by far the scariest quarterbacks. I think they're by far the 2 best quarterbacks. And, then you can get into the conversation of Herbert, Lamar, Burrow, and whatever your preference is out of those 3, I'm fine. But to me, Josh Allen, and I'm an Allen stan,
Right,
self-admittedly.
right.
So
But
you
yeah,
know what
but
I
I
mean.
mean,
But
you got a reason to though. I mean, you were hanging in there when nobody liked him. So
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean,
for
I
sure. I
get that
definitely
part.
rode through some tough years trying to be right
Right.
about that pick. It's
It's
very
kind of.
similar to what I'm doing with Trey Lance right now,
Oh
and I'm
yeah, me
hoping that
too.
I'm right again. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
I'm writing that one too, and yeah, I got people that like my friends are killing me on Facebook, man.
Yeah,
They're killing me about Trey on Facebook, but
yeah.
I don't know, man. I honestly think that the worst match out of the one quarter, but I would not want to face Lamar with weapons.
No,
I
no,
wouldn't
don't
want
get
to
me
play
wrong.
against him
He's scary as hell.
if he had speed and a tight. I wouldn't want to see him with a lot of speed and talent. I wouldn't want to play against him because he's
Well,
a
you're starting to get some now, though. That's good, and we might see. Hopefully,
I don't know about
I'm
that.
rooting for Lamar.
I'm rooting for Lamar too. I just don't think Odell's going to play a full season.
Still
So
better than anything they've had there in a while from a
very
receiver
true.
standpoint.
No
You got
argument here.
Dobbins coming off. Dobbins is more healthy than he's been in a couple years. You got a new
Yep.
offensive coordinator. They drafted Zay Flowers. It's a pretty good pick there. So they got another receiver. We'll see. If I'm them, I'm not done. I'm going all in on D Hop. If you can get D
Yeah,
Hop there too,
I definitely would go get D
ooh,
Hop. Yeah,
oh,
because he is always open. He's like the 18. He's like
yes,
7-11. That man is always
yes,
open. Yeah,
yes.
got to give it to him. So, all right, Jesse, I appreciate you coming on the show. And it was kind of weird doing my first show, but I mean,
You
it
did
is what it
good.
is. I
You did good,
appreciate that.
man. And it's this journey's fun. Don't here's what I'll say. If I can give any advice, don't forget this moment. The excitement, the nervousness, all those things to go live for the first time. And then when you hit publish on that first video, don't forget that moment because you're going to get 6-8 months down the line and it's just going to be kind of normal for you. You're going to get in a routine. And there are going to be times where you're like, do I really love this the way that I did? Remember
Right.
this moment because
Okay.
it's gonna come up and be important again for you.
All right. Cool. All right. Thanks, man. I appreciate you stopping by. All right.
Later,
Take
man.
it easy. All right.